Cool room.
Let us know the total, we can split it with you.
Right, I think Tarun has that information.
Somewhere around 60.
Who did the pineapple?
I think
Testing.
I know it's a hot topic,
I'm
but
gonna log in. I'm gonna log in here
I'm a
too.
fan of pineapple and sausage. It's a good combo. I don't really, the ham is like,
What's your name?
okay.
Walter, good to see you. Michael. What year are you?
I'm a fourth year.
Okay. And what's next?
Just looking for jobs.
Okay.
So
How's it going, guys? Hello. What are you guys?
We now
favorite
have
names?
pizza, so.
Pizza from Walter, courtesy of Walter.
not just me,
Uh,
us.
Hacker Society.
Get a little warm.
A little toasty.
Is there an adjustment? You might be able to turn it down. Just maybe to like.
I'm good at this. It either freezes, it's either hot or freezing. Cool, all right. Okay. It doesn't feel like it's kicked off. It doesn't always work. Okay, let me.
We might ask you all to move more forward if no one else comes. Can't be
Leave computer.
shying away
audio.
over there.
Oh, one young. Ryan. So, yeah. Well,
Feel free to start getting your pizza if you want any.
people.
Or I'm gonna take it all.
Hey, how are you? We're trying to figure it out now. It's quite all right. Good, busy, but good. How about for you?
Change.
Good. Pardon me?
Yeah, she's so busy, you guys are.
How do you spell your name?
It's been pretty busy.
R-E-E-C-E.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be reaching out to kids, like,
Buckner, I didn't type it.
do an introduction.
Change from me.
Buckner Wolfson.
Yeah, it's
Hi.
long.
How are
long.
you?
That's how I remember
And you
that.
could be a great.
Hey, how are you? Good, good.
Oh, I just texted-
And you connected with.
Oh, no,
Did
we're
you
all-
want me to bring something?
No, I was
Oh,
saying
okay.
we're all good here now.
Yeah. but
Okay.
we're-
Let's do more for those. Something like.
Hey, Wan Young, how are you?
I'm good.
Where are you?
I'm zooming in from the gym in Michigan.
Okay, are you still going to Korea?
I am. I leave in 2 weeks.
That's awesome. Call me before you leave. I want to catch up.
I've had a discussion with her.
Sounds good. I might be here on Thursday, so I'll let you know.
Better. Come on in. Let's hang out.
I see one of his colleagues.
Bob, come on in. All right, so we're just waiting. Yeah, why don't we do a quick, just to get, I mean, we were informally, Irene, senior.
I'm a senior in computer engineering. I'm from Palestine, international student. Hopefully after I graduate, I'm in between finding jobs and going for master's, so I'm applying everywhere and see what I get.
Nice.
Yeah.
My name is Jack. I'm a freshman. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm double majoring in finance and cognitive science on pre-law. After I graduate, which is going to be a minute, I want to go to law school and pursue mergers and acquisitions.
I'm Adam. I'm a first year student studying cognitive science and econ. I'm just here because thinking of different internship possibilities and that kind of stuff. So yeah.
My name is Walter. I am a fourth year computer science major. I'm from New York City, and right now I'm just looking to find jobs to work in either New York or Cleveland. Potentially.
Oops. Nice. Mindy Bile, I'm with the Veale Institute. I work with faculty and alumni on their startup ventures.
I'm Brian Grant, I'm a faculty member in sociology and law. Very interested in what field Veale does, and actually had a meal over the weekend with a former student who does mergers and acquisitions, so.
I'm Christian. I'm a first year studying computer science and finance. Also kind of looking for summer internships. I'm interested in like tech entrepreneurship space. So
Megan Kuhar, I'm the marketing lead here for Veale, and a musician, came over from Baldwin Wallace, did creative entrepreneurship, coaching and teaching there, so happy to be here.
I'm Reese, I'm a senior in computer science and electrical engineering. Thank you.
It was funny when Reese moderated an earlier Veale speaker series with Bob Herbal. You're Bob Herbal.
Bob
So-
Herbal, yeah.
Moderated.
So Reese asked one question.
Is a word.
Oh, I
that is
remember.
used lightly.
It is like, and he went into this thing and that was the entire session.
I think this time will be
That's
different.
right.
Yeah.
That's the song.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. Coming to you live from the office, but good to see everybody.
See you. Well, Megan will give us the high sign when we're ready for.
I'm gonna turn my video off because I'm gonna do
Okay,
pizza.
let's see.
Activating.
No, I've got meeting at 1 o'clock. so I'm ready.
I'm gonna do
Okay.
this, yeah, I'll do
Okay,
it.
sorry.
Okay. Actually, I'll remove this one. See you guys.
Okay,
Okay.
cool. Well, Nsisong, good to see you. Welcome back to your alma mater. We obviously know each other, but I'm Michael Goldberg. I'm our executive director for the Veale Institute for Entrepreneurship and also a professor at Weatherhead. This is a particularly fun one for me. So it was January 2020, Nsisong, our first ever speaker series. Actually, it's funny, Nsisong, Mike Fisher, who Nsisong was our first student moderator for an event with Mike Fisher, who was the CTO of Etsy at the time. 3 years later, Nsisong is out in the real world working at Google, which is awesome. And Mike Fisher left Etsy and was with us a couple weeks ago on, some of you may have joined either via LinkedIn or Zoom or in person for a session that we had on ChatGPT. So you're our first graduate, somebody who's gone from moderating a session to being the speaker. So, and hopefully not the last. So Reese, no pressure. 3 years from now, we want to have you back. Actually, we have some first year students in here. One of you could be moderating the session with Reese 3 years from now. So again, no pressure on you. So as you know, because you did the session, all of these are student moderated, which is great. Reese is going to run the show. We've got a great group of students in here and some faculty and colleagues. We've got a bunch of folks sort of online on LinkedIn. And so with that, Reese, why don't we pass it over to you?
All right, so I think probably started off just telling us a little about yourself and your journey to becoming a UX design consultant at Google.
Yeah, happy to talk about that. Thanks a ton, Reese, and thanks a ton, Michael, for inviting me to chat today. It's incredible being part of this full circle moment. So really, really grateful to have the chance to be joining you all virtually today. And I see some familiar faces in the room. So great to see you all. So launching into my journey as to how I ended up as a UX consultant today. I'll go back to, I guess, from the very beginning. My kindergarten teacher actually gets points for prophecy because when I was in kindergarten, my mom she'd tell me the story about how my teacher would just find me if I was done with my work, kind of like lurking, and I'd be on her computer, just like touching it and like checking it out. And my kindergarten teacher actually said that she predicted that I'd end up working with computers. And wow, Miss Selman, she was onto something. But fast forwarding, when I was in high school, I was part of this high school involvement partnership that Northrop Grumman sponsored. So I spent my junior and senior years interning and working on projects in cybersecurity and robotics and app development. And I wasn't from a particularly techie family, but I'd been interested in building websites and tinkering. But through that program, it was my first time having formal mentorship, and that really accelerated my interest in tech. So when I came to Case, I was interested in being a computer engineering or computer science major. But as I participated in more internships, So I went back to Northrop for a summer, and then I spent another summer at General Mills building tools to support their business operations. And during that time, I became less interested in how we built software. So the system architecture, what libraries we're pulling from, and I became more interested in why we were building something, why certain problems existed, what our approach to problem solving said about us as a company or as a community or as a society. These are questions that I started getting really itchy about sophomore semester, I think. So I started researching programs that combine technology and culture, and I popped across human-computer interaction as a field. And then also at the same time, I felt that exploring this why intertwined really well with studying entrepreneurship, which I think boils down to the science of asking good questions. What is a pressing concern? What is broken? And then taking that and pulling that knowledge together to create a solution. So at the start of my junior year, I did some work to create my own major, so human-computer interaction. So I mirrored CASE's course offerings with the structure for HCI undergrad programs I'd seen at other schools. And I got to take some really interesting courses like cognition and virtual reality. I took an Internet of Things seminar. I did some discrete math and Java and data science to get technical pieces in. And then I got to complete my senior capstone in design anthropology. And I looked at the overlap between design processes and anthropological frameworks within the context of a tech company. So it was super duper neat. And then I also, during my time, majored in business management. That's where I met Michael. And I also got to do a bunch of hackathons and pitch competitions. And shout out to Bob, who I also see in the room, huge in kind of mentoring me in that space. And then lastly, also during my time at Case, I was really blessed to be able to serve as president in 2 different student organizations. So I led the National Society of Black Engineers and the Undergraduate Diversity Collaborative. And those experiences and leadership taught me a lot about listening with intention and then using what I learned to create meaningful events and services and also advocate for other people. And so in 2020, when I was, I guess 2019, when I was on the job hunt and I had all of these experiences through the process of building my major, through my internships, through the side projects I worked on and extracurriculars, when I interviewed at Google, and also for context, I actually interviewed 3 times and failed. And then on my 4th time, I did get this first job. So lucky number 4. And my first role was in a program, it's called ASAP, so the America's Sales Associate Program. And I was an account manager. So I used my entrepreneurship skills to pitch different ads products to Google's largest advertisers, but I also had to rotate teams every 6 months. So I saw a lot of different industries. I worked with healthcare clients and tech companies, so like Planet Fitness. I worked with Microsoft. I worked with MailChimp as some examples. And everything I learned at Case was really helpful then, especially in my entrepreneurship studies, because my entire role for 2 years was being able to show up, get to know these clients, get to know their business, be able to demonstrate impact, roll off the team, and then do it all over again. Rinse, wash, repeat 4 times. And having built that muscle from taking classes where we're building ventures or spending a weekend and only having 3 days to come up with a compelling pitch, I wouldn't have been able to adjust as easily as I did if I didn't have those experiences. But the rotational program was 2 years. And when it was time for me to leave, I learned that it was so great being able to spend time honing my pitching skills and my selling skills, but I still wanted to lean into my training in human-centered design. So I felt I was really lucky to end up in this role where I'm still supporting really large clients, but now I'm only in the capacity to advise them on what's really best for their users. So I run research studies, hear from customers. I look at analytics to see where folks are dropping off, and then I get to report back to their design and engineering teams. So that's where I've landed now. And also for the first 2 years I was in Chicago and I moved to New York in June. So I've been exploring all that adventure is.
It seems that your journey has been very creative and taken a lot of different twists and turns. Do you think your interest in design has influenced that in any way, shaped what experiences and roles you've explored?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do think it has. And also I think my experiences interacting with, the design thinking process. And I know that's what this talk is billed as, so I'm going to use that word. But the design thinking process has been helpful in me building my career, like constantly thinking about it as this like iterative process. And as I mentioned, definitely failed a few times. But being able to go back to the drawing board and think about, even on a personal level, like what am I feeling? What do I want to do? How do I define what I want to do? How do I kind of brainstorm pathways to get there? Go for it, see what happens, learn from what happens and keep going next. I think that's been critical in helping me decide what opportunities to step forward into or not to. I was chatting with a mentor quite a while ago, but I asked her for advice, and something she said was that she's had to learn how to say, not to say yes to every single thing that excites her. And that's a huge piece of advice I've had to like lean into, is there is so much out there, but being able to use discernment and being able to think about what is most useful. I think that style of thinking was largely influenced by my training in design.
I think with that, you've kind of touched on my next question, which is how has design thinking changed your approach to like problem solving? I think you got into that a little bit with how you like structure your tasks and like what you want to do going forward, but if you could talk about that more.
Yeah, in terms of other things I'd say on that topic, I think I've learned to recognize the value of just having an idea in the first place, right? Like, I think I think of ideas as more of gifts now, and I think of myself as someone that has to do a good job stewarding that gift, right? So if I have an idea, it's my responsibility to make sure I'm poking holes in it, and that this idea is based in a place where I have done that research, I have listened, I have gathered this understanding of what the context is and why, and then also doing the work that it takes to bring it out into existence. So even if that takes hours, even if that takes a lot of writing or a lot of time designing different images or coding up a storm, whatever that means. So I've gotten to that place. I hope that answers the question.
I'm switching gears a little bit, but I want to go back to your time at Case. So you were involved in a lot of clubs and organizations that like the National Society of Black Engineers and the Design for America Studio, where you were focused on like diversity and inclusion. So how have these experiences shaped your perspective on entrepreneurship and the importance of diversity in the tech industry?
Yeah, great question. In terms of entrepreneurship, I think those activities, even though they weren't directly related to entrepreneurship, helped me, again, learn how to make a case for whether that be a new program or whether that be an event, just constantly being in that flow of brainstorming, putting it out there, picking up what comes next. I'm trying to think of an example. So as for example, during my last year in UDC, Undergraduate Diversity Collaborative, one of our big projects was putting together a lending library. So a service where if somebody broke their laptop or they didn't have a graphing calculator or something like that, they could go to KSL and they could rent one for extended usage that they could take out and have for several days. And that was an idea, great. But over the course of the year, we learned how important it was to make sure we, one, were able to compile stories of students who had gone through a really tough time after having their laptop break or something like that happen. And then we also had to package it into a proposal and then present that to President Snyder at the time. And so that process of being able to make a case for why this aspect of student life should change, that's not something I would have had to go through if I wasn't in a student organization. And then also, for example, being part of and Michael alluded to this earlier, being part of the Veale Institute and moderating a talk, I was terrified when I was not terrified because Mike's amazing, but I was a little nervous being the moderator for that first session because talking to a C-level executive, I'm asking questions. I'm not exactly, that's not something that you're necessarily used to doing in your day-to-day college life. But last week I was on a call with a C-level executive of of a major company an executive summit where I was asked to give a speech on the importance of design and give the recommendations custom tailored to their site. And if I had not had that experience 3 years ago, it would have made it much harder to be able to jump in and fully own that kind of task. And then to answer the part about diversity and inclusion and how important that was, I think for me, being part of those organizations was huge because I learned about the power of mentorship. I was so lucky to be mentored by, for example, in the National Society of Engineers, a lot of National Society of Black Engineers, a lot of the older members were really helpful in terms of helping me getting through class, kind of understanding the structure of the university. And I definitely wouldn't be the person I am today without them. And then also because we had a NSBE junior chapter and we worked with high schoolers in the Cleveland area, I learned how important it was to make sure not only was I absorbing knowledge, but I was actively giving that back. And I think that as I moved into Google and became more involved with some of the DEI initiatives there, I built that mindset at Case. So now I do have 2 mentees, and it's been really wonderful being able to spend time with them. And I also participate in like 4 or 5 different mentorship programs. So, but I didn't learn how critical that was, like being part of that line, without my time in extracurriculars at Case.
So like kind of getting to see it from all different sides and angles have helped, and like just sorry. How have you seen diversity and inclusion initiatives in tech industry evolve over the past couple of years?
Yeah, great question. I can mainly speak to what I've seen over the past 3. And it's interesting because I started at Google 2 weeks after virtual graduation. So a lot of my experience has been largely shaped by the COVID-19 crisis. And what I saw come out of that was, I think there's a really, really big emphasis on well-being. And also there has been conversation about how remote work, I know statistics have come out that prove that, not that statistics have come out that speak to how underrepresented communities thrive in remote working conditions because there aren't as many microaggressions or things like that. And so it's been interesting kind of seeing how we're having conversations at work about how we can be better to each other. And so in my 3 years, I've seen a lot of encouragement towards taking mental health days and taking time and space to meditate or to do self-care, so that way when we show up, we're that much more refreshed and ready to tackle work. And then also in terms of what I've seen specifically within the division on Google that I'm in. So I'm in GTech, which is Google Technical Services, and they've developed this program called the Sisterhood to make sure Black women in the organization are being promoted and are accelerating at the same rate of everyone as a whole. And so all Black women in GTech get access to professional coaching with our managers, also one-on-one. And they've seen in the years since they've instituted that program an increase in promotions, and we're at this point much closer to reaching parity than they were, say, I think it's been 3 or 4 years now. So I'm seeing an openness from leadership to listen to folks that have diverse perspectives in their organizations, and also not just listen, but be willing to sponsor programs like Sisterhood, be willing to sponsor onboarding programs, things like that. And I hope that they continue to hold on to those commitments, even though we're not necessarily in kind of the heat of the moment, kind of COVID era, where these things seem to be more pressing.
See these things, those hot topics stay important even after they've fallen off like public perception a little bit. Is that what you're hoping for? Yeah. So then also, how do you think your like experience in extracurriculars and college has helped you like prepare for working outside your comfort zone and interacting professionally?
Yeah, I think it's helped me because I was involved in a lot of different extracurriculars and I always had a lot of projects going on. It makes it easy to have a lot of different projects going on in my day-to-day work life, which is really nice because we all get 40 hours. So whatever you can do to maximize those, it's been really useful. Outside of that, yeah, I learned a lot about sending really good, impactful emails because, as college students, people, they're living lives. They don't have time to read through to read through paragraphs and paragraphs of why things are important. So communicating with general body members really taught me how to maximize a sentence, and that was really useful. And then lastly, I think it's made me more creative. So on my team, if we need, like for example, last week one of my team members left, so we had a going away party, or if there's a birthday, I'm always the person that kind of gets tapped for that because I'm used to, let's order insomnia cookies, like let's do some sort of something to get people going. So it's nice to be able to be known as a team builder in that sense. And then also I think being active in community service was built into a lot of the extracurriculars that I was part of back then. And it's made it really easy to continue to jump into those initiatives now, and even go one step forward and like encourage people within my team to support a different work. So it's been really valuable.
Thank you. So I have some more questions, but I want to take some time to open it up to just everyone who's here and on Zoom. We don't currently have any questions asked on Zoom, but if anyone wants to put some in chat or anyone in this room want to ask questions.
And if you could introduce yourself also
Yeah.
to Nsisong would be great.
Is it Nilsson?
Nsisong.
Nsisong, thank you. It was really inspiring to hear you. My name is Irene and I'm a senior here at Case. I majored in computer engineering and minor in computer science. And it was inspiring to listen to your talk because it kind of helped me reflect on my own experience as well. And you talked a lot about how it was really awesome for you to be part of all these organizations and clubs and how it helped you in your career. I would say for us, I mean, at least my generation, we were a little disadvantaged with COVID. Sophomore year, we weren't in person, and then junior year kind of got lucked in and got used to like the remote life and not being out there. I also didn't have a mentor throughout my, undergrad experience. My advisor wasn't always present, so I didn't really get that mentorship opportunity. And I think hearing from other people, it seems like it's a great opportunity. So until now, not having a mentor and not having this guidance, I noticed that, I was kind of all over the place. I was like between hardware and software and still deciding what I want to do. It's still in the same field, but I'm still kind of confused. So do you think, is it too late to get a mentor? Or if I do want to get a mentor now to kind of get a better idea of where I want to end up, how can I find my mentor?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And also thank you for sharing your experience and being vulnerable about all the challenges that have been present over the past couple of years. And congratulations on being a senior, only a couple months left. But I would say no, definitely never too late to get a mentor. And I would say in terms of finding mentors, well, I mean, I guess I'll raise my, I'm not an expert on hardware or software, but if you need someone to chat with once or twice a month about navigating careers, happy to do that. But something that I did during my years to track down mentors was using LinkedIn. So at least once a week, I had a constant stream of doing a conversation and doing this. I'd reach out to someone whose career path I thought was really interesting on LinkedIn, and I would say to them, are you available to talk for 30 minutes? And I chatted with a lot of people, and a lot of people were really open to sharing how they got to where they were, challenges that they had faced, advice that they had for me. And that was super formative throughout. I did that, I guess, consistently for about, 2 years, but that was super formative in helping me kind of think about where I wanted to go with my career. So I strongly recommend, you don't have to talk to somebody every single week. I think I was doing a bit much, but maybe setting that goal. Maybe that means reaching out to someone once a month or setting up a coffee chat with someone once a quarter, just so you're one, establishing that network. And then two, if you're in a conversation with someone and you find that they have a path that's really similar to the one that you want to be on, being willing to reach out and ask if they would be interested in kind of mentoring you. And then also when you're making that ask, I found that it's really helpful if you tell people how to help you. So sometimes I'd be working on like a side project and I'd say, I was taking this class in this design area and I'm working on putting together a wireframe for an airline, just something random that I'm working on just for the sake of growing my skills. And then I'd bring that up during my talk with them and I'd ask them, what's your perspective on how I approach this problem? Just so they have something that they feel like they're talking directly to. And then also when I'd ask for folks to be my mentor, I would say, do you have time? Do you have 30 minutes once a month to chat with me about resumes, to chat with me about building my portfolio? Or I would speak very specifically to what I felt like I needed. And that does take some time, some soul searching time on your end to really think about, okay, where do I want to go? Why do I want to go in that direction? What's missing for me to get there? And then bringing that up with a prospective mentor is a great way to make sure you're really maximizing your time in theirs. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, of course, thank you. That's good.
Hi, good to see you. So,
Hi.
not on crutches, remember Entrepreneur Immersion Week?
I sure do. I
Yeah.
sure do. Yeah, that was a really good time. I think the entrepreneurship competitions really helped me build a sense of resilience. And for context, I tore a ligament in my knee like the week before that week. So I was on crutches. I remember through a lot of the time. So I think like having to walk through that was a bit tricky, but the entire experience was amazing. It was so good.
That
And
was
also,
just so great. You were just, out there. It's like you just had, they
I
had
think
and it comes up on crutches. So she's got a lot of grit. Let's put it that way. Do you know Stephanie Hippo?
yeah. We follow each other on LinkedIn, but I
Okay,
know
yeah.
she's at Google and she's amazing and she does a great job mentoring.
Right. I was just going to say she's another one. She's Google Seattle. Not that you
Yeah.
want to be centric, but you definitely want to reach out because she actually put a human face on the Hacker Society when she was here. Yeah, she definitely brought them to a different level. Stephanie's been another great one. Don't just be Google-ish, but she would be another one there. So good seeing you.
Good seeing you too, Bob.
It looks like we have one question in the chat. I don't know if the person who asked the question wants to just go off mute and ask it themselves. I can also just read it off if that's better.
One Young, are you able to ask a question directly or you want Reese to read it?
Could you read it off?
Yeah.
Okay, she may be okay.
Yeah. Okay. So my name is Wan Young and I graduated last semester with an electrical engineering computer science degree. I was especially inspired by your experience navigating creating your own major at Case. During my time at Case, I also realized that design thinking kept creeping into all of my school and professional projects. Do you have any resources that you recommend to continue learning about this topic? Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today.
Oh, thanks so much for your question. In terms of resources I can think of, I took a few courses in UVA, has a design thinking for innovation concentration. And I found the objectives of that are kind of unpacking what design thinking is, good use cases for it. And also I know it's a bit of a buzzword. So the class does a good job unpacking situations where you actually should not use design thinking. And I really benefited from that. And then more broadly, within the design space, I listened to What is Wrong with UX. It's a podcast by Laura Klein and Kate Rudder. And then I don't jump into these as frequently anymore, but there's a website called ADP List. And also I guess that calls back to the question about mentoring. ADP List is specifically for matching folks with, I think, UX mentors. But in addition to the mentorship piece, they have a lot of events that they'll throw, like they'll have design thinking book clubs or different people from industry will pop in and host sessions. So I found that was another good way that I picked up some learning. So I hope the UVA, Design Thinking for Innovation, What is Wrong with UX, ADP List are the top 3 that I recommend.
Thank you. Any other questions in here?
No, I'll ask a question just on the theme of some of the things we're doing with Mike Fisher. So AI which obviously has been around for a while, is now, there's so many conversations, whether it's ChatGPT or sort of the impact of AI in other fields. We're having some really interesting discussions with other colleagues and sort of obviously the impact on the university. Just sort of curious from where you sit and the work that you do, how is AI impacting your particular field, and how may that field sort of impact the kind of jobs that some of our students are sort of looking at as they come out of here?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So far, I mean, as you all may have heard, focusing on AI is a huge focus for like capital G Google. So person in my inbox, I'm seeing a lot of news about that and about how we position our offerings. So that's been a big thing for me. And then in the field of design, I mean, we're not too far away from a world where AI will be able to like design wireframes for us or create an entire sites in a few seconds and kind of bypass the UX designers and researchers altogether. And also with ChatGPT, UX copy, content strategy, all of those things are changing. So I think that there is an opportunity, especially like for any students thinking about the general career field. We can only, with the amazing powerful tool that AI is, we can only do as much as we can ask. So there's an opportunity to become, the better you become at asking questions and the better you become at writing prompts, the more effective your workflow will be. So any training you can do around active listening, asking questions on refining your writing. So when it is time to write that prompt, you're ready to go. I think that's huge. And then also I think there's, as we're generating all this content now, for me, I'm doing more work looking into the field of design ethics. And I think there's an opportunity, and I really hope that we can all lean into this, to be willing to kind of be willing to start conversations around, what we're generating and why, and how we're using it, and how the sets are trained. And I think something that I'm trying to bring, and I encourage you all to bring, is that perspective and kind of doing research on algorithmic biases that exist, kind of things in that realm. That's what I would recommend I'm looking into. So being able to ask good questions and use the tools in an effective way, learn what's going on out there. And then 2, thinking about ethics would be my recommendations there.
One thing Mike Fisher did say, he goes, ChatGPT won't take your job. Somebody using ChatGPT will. So I've actually used his quote a number of times because it's like, it's out there. You better learn how to manage it and harness it to your betterment. And there can be other ways to do it. So we don't all program in HTML, right? We don't get down to that greater machine language. We use interpreters and everything else. So this is another tool to use.
We have another question in chat. So in terms of design ethics, is this an area that is openly talked about during the design process at Google currently?
Yeah, great question. So it's interesting because I'm a consultant. I technically am aligned with the business unit at Google. And then there's also a UX ladder, which houses like all the jobs that are responsible for putting together products. So I'll speak to the best of my knowledge, but I'm not as tuned in to that side. But we do have a product inclusion team. And there are different ethics teams that are baked in. And so even I've seen a lot of trainings and workshops that have spun out of that group. So it is something that we're having discussions about.
Yeah, hi, I'm Adam. I'm a first year student studying cognitive science and economics with an interest in applied data science as well. So it seems like your experience in kind of a bunch of different internships throughout college helped you kind of shape your career path and fine-tune your interests to where you are now. And as someone who is kind of starting to go down that path now, trying to find internships that will help me do the same, do you have any advice for myself and the other first year students in the room in terms of like strategies for finding those kinds of internships and kind of how to approach just that whole process?
Yeah, great question, Adam. I would say one, using the Career Center. So putting together your resume and not going to them and saying, okay, screen this, copy edit this, and also just running your resume by as many people as possible just to see if there's a better way you can frame the accomplishments you've already done. That was huge. So you're ready to go. Secondly, as much work as you can do around, I know we talk about them a lot, but elevator statements, or just kind of thinking about what your personal brand is, where you want to go, and being able to explain that really clearly, like in 45 seconds. Because tell me about yourself is the first question you'll be asked across the board. 3, and apologies if this doesn't resonate a ton, because I know things might still be slightly different, but for me, the conference circuit was huge. So if you can, I went to the conferences for like the Society of Women Engineers, National Society of Black Engineers. I'm not sure what professional organizations exist for like cognitive science or those fields, but I mean, Case Western Reserve has a career fair also as well. I know it can be a bit harder as a first year, second year student, but I found that I still went, and just being able to practice being in front of a recruiter, talking to my experience, being able to look at job descriptions, and then be able to tie in how what I was interested in or how I was studying would align really well with the role. I think the practice makes perfect is a huge element of it. And something else that I learned was you only need one. So I don't even know what the ratio would be if I were to look at every single job I've ever applied for and every single job I've actually got. But I assume it's probably somewhere in like the 2% range. You're gonna get a lot of no's. Yeah, I mean, even for context, for this job that I'm currently in, when I left the rotational program, I applied for 10 roles, and I got a single role, which is all you need. You only need one job. You only need one internship per summer. But I just say that to give reassurance that it can be a really tough journey, like being out there looking for internships, looking for the next role. So also baking in time for that self-care, for making sure that you're taking breaks, you're spending time with friends, you're kind of recognizing your own value and worth as a human being outside of that system. So to summarize, make sure have as many people look at your resume as possible, spend a lot of time thinking about what your personal brand is and how you want to articulate that if you run into a recruiter, because you never know who could be around. And then 3, see what large opportunities exist to meet with a lot of companies at any given time. Maybe that's a networking event, maybe that's a conference, whatever that looks like for you or your field. Recommend going in that direction.
Great, thank you.
We have another question from chat. So, hi Nsisong. I am an aspiring design thinking coach in Lagos, Nigeria, and it is my desire to help undergraduate students in our university to appreciate design thinking. Do you think it's worth the effort? Why?
Wow, yeah, that's a great question, and always good to hear from fellow Nigerians. I mean, I'm biased, but I think it is worth the effort. Well, maybe it's worth doing that exercise of unpacking, like helping people understand, helping people appreciate design thinking. I would invite you to think about, okay, who are we trying to focus on? Undergraduate students that's a pretty broad demographic, but are there specific kinds of students? Is it people in engineering, people within more of like an art and science path? Are there specific kinds of students that you think would benefit? And are there specific areas that this approach could be applied for in their lives? And I think answering those 2 questions, and also from a coaching perspective, maybe thinking about how your experiences lend uniquely to address the problems that these specific undergraduate students might be encountering in their work or in their life. Taking time to unpack all of those would be would allow you to more specifically address, like, is it worth the effort? Because if that audience isn't necessarily going to be very receptive for a variety of factors, then maybe it would make sense to pivot and focus on maybe middle school students or high school students. And I'm talking very, very broadly because I don't have all the information here, but my recommendation would be to kind of do a bit of ethnographic research and kind of ask the students that you're trying to help what their biggest problems are. And then from there, kind of think about how design thinking as an approach could, or maybe even could not, like fill in the gaps there. And then and only then would we be able to like fully determine if it's worth the effort. So long answer, but I absolutely wish you all the best in that endeavor. And I really hope it does work, it works out.
Thank you. That's a great answer.
Yeah, so mine is a little bit more broad, but throughout your college experience, clearly you were a leader, you were involved on campus. And as a leader of something like UDC, you interact with people on pretty much a daily basis to figure out initiatives and just to communicate in general. But you mentioned your COVID graduation. How did you, and your first job being, I'm sure, entirely remote with a million obstacles, how did you adapt from interacting with people face to face and relying on that to going fully online in a new space and just networking in general? Like, can you tell me
Yeah,
about
that's a great question. Also, can you tell me your name?
Oh
Sorry.
yeah, sorry. My name is Jack. I'm a freshman. I'm studying finance and cognitive science.
Hi, Jack. Thanks for the question. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep it honest. It was really hard. So in March of 2020, I was actually in Chicago signing my lease for my apartment because I knew I was gonna have to move 2 weeks after graduation. And once the university shut down, I mean, I was told at the time we'd be back in office by September. So I figured, okay, it's May. I'm just gonna move anyway. How long could I sit there? And I ended up sitting there for quite some time, like over a year. So it was a little challenging. And also I would chat with people in Chicago and they'd say, wow, when I first moved here, it was like 2018 or 2019 and I had such a hard time. I can't imagine how you're doing it. And I got a lot of comments like that, which were kind of tough. I mean, it was unique and I'm sure you all can relate because you have also faced those unique challenges of the time. But I found what really helped me pull through was one, the really fantastic community that I built at Case. So even I think my first coworkers were actually raised people I define as my coworkers, people that I was working with at the same time, weren't my Google coworkers, but I would like FaceTime with my friends who were also in the remote jobs, and we would just like look at each other and type away. And it was really nice having that. So I think pulling from the people I'd already known was critical. And then secondly, doing the best that I could to get involved. So a lot of the employee resource groups are still holding events. I remember I volunteered to moderate an event, volunteered to do whatever I could to help to meet people, even though they were just squares. I'm really grateful I did that because once we actually were back in the office, it was much easier to bridge connections because I chatted with them before. And then also they had a lot of programs you could sign up for where once a week it would automatically add someone random to your calendar that you get to meet. So I found the networking piece to be really huge. And also lastly, in the spirit of full transparency, I found that therapy was really helpful for me to kind of unpack what I was feeling with everything new that was happening with the transition of going from being an undergrad student to a full-time worker and with everything that was just going on in that time. I felt, and I'm blessed that I was able to have access to that resource, but I think that was also critical in helping me pull through and find meaning in that time. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I think we have time for like one final question. If anyone has a question they would want to ask. No, I have just a like silly wrap up question. Are there any current or upcoming projects you're working on personally that you're excited about? You want to share?
Yeah. I guess like from a work perspective, I'm really excited this year to learn more about being like a strategic, long-term working person. And the reason I say that is because a skill set that I got really good at building through the hackathons, through all the entrepreneurship competitions, through all of that stuff, was being able to show up, come up with compelling ideas, present them, and then move on to the next situation, which served me so well and will continue to serve me really well. And especially as I went into the rotation program, it was just that. But now that I'm in a role that I'm going to be in, hopefully for quite a while, I am learning about, okay, how do I think about what I want to be doing a year from now, 2 years from now? Where will our clients be a year from now, 2 years from now? So developing that perspective is going to be a journey, but I'm really excited to see what's ahead. And then outside of work, I think before I took on the title of being like a UX designer or a student or any of those things, I was actually a poet first. So I started writing poetry when I was probably 10 or 11 years old. And because I live in New York City now, it's been really great to become part of that community and be more active in like going to readings and workshops. And over the past 3 years, I've been working on a project that I actually started when I was at Case Western Reserve. And I'm working on this, it's loosely called the Reunion Project, but I would take pictures of gloves that I'd find on the ground. And I thought it was just really, for some reason, that disconnect, that brief moment of loss with the gloves was really interesting for me. So in the 3 cities I've lived in, I've taken a bunch of these pictures, and now I'm using AI to generate pairs. So I have these pictures, and then I'm going to reconnect and refine the gloves through like OpenAI. And then I'm writing finger poems, so like these 5-line poems about the gloves and about like the situations that have happened for me to find them. So that's been like a neat art project I've been doing on the side. And also, I guess as a quick plug, or not as a quick plug, but last recommendation is that work is awesome. Diving into work is amazing, but I found that being able to be creative outside of my 9 to 5 hours has allowed me to, I guess, better perform here. So if there's an art form that you've not dabbled in, always thought about it, hopefully this is like your signal from above to go try.
Thank you so much.
Great.
So nice being here with you all.
I'll share the window with Reese. Nsisong, thank you for doing it. It was great. It's awesome having you back. We're so proud of what you are doing and continue to accomplish. And the fact that you'll always be our first moderator. You'll have that with your whole career. So thank you for reconnecting with us here. And we're excited to keep following all the great things you're doing.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Honestly, I would not be here if it wasn't for you and the team, and like Case Western Reserve has been so formative in me becoming the person I am today. So thank you all for the work that you're doing and have continued to do.
Cool. So I don't think we have any more events this week. What's that?
Skills labs.
2 skills labs. Check our website and LinkedIn page. Then we are on spring break, and then I know we have a whole bunch of different events coming up, including I think a Brian Grant event at some point soon. So hope to see everybody soon. Thanks, Reese, for doing this. Thanks to Nsisong again, and we'll see y'all soon.
All right, take care.
Thanks.